What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Sector for Nerds. I'm Ryan Brower, and today I'm here to chat with y'all about The Mandalorian Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore, the first Mandalorian episode to have more than 2 words in its title. But before we get into that, you guys, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'm someone who does a lot of discussion videos on Star Wars content, such as what we're doing here today. We're doing it right now with both the Mando Season 3 and Bad Batch Season 2. New discussion videos every single week, so make sure you guys are staying tuned for those. I also am doing video game content on the channel as well. We're currently playing through the Star Wars Battlefront 2 Iden Versio campaign, and once we get through that, it'll be about time for Jedi Survivor, and we will definitely be playing through that as well. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and if we do that, we will do a watch party live stream of an entire Star Wars trilogy, whether it be prequels, originals, or sequels. As far as which one we do, I will leave that up to y'all. But tell your friends, family, neighbors, let them know that Sector for Nerds is the place to be. Tell them to subscribe. It's free, and it really helps to support me as a content creator. All right, you guys, let's talk about this episode of The Mandalorian. I have said it before, you guys, but I absolutely love The Mandalorian. There hasn't really been any episodes that I haven't liked, apart from maybe the one episode with the spiders, but all these other episodes are either just, good or fantastic. It's amazing. I feel like it's just such an easy show to get into and to watch and to be invested in. I love the story. I love the characters. Come on, what's not to love? So we start out with the Mandalorian on Tatooine. This is a very short scene, but we get to see Peli Motto again, who's a character that we've seen in all the seasons of Mandalorian and also the Book of Boba Fett too. And she even references Boba Fett in this episode as well. Like, she's sitting there thinking, oh, are you here for like some big mission, or the Hutt's back? Is it something with Boba Fett? Oh, you're just here to get a droid. And get a droid he does, because he gets a good old-fashioned R5 unit. The main part of this episode was Din and Grogu going to Mandalore, which really shocked me. I actually can't believe that we got here by episode 2. But you know what? I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's do this. Which then it's like, okay, so if we're doing the Mandalore stuff now, like, what's going to happen in like the rest of the season? Because I feel like most of the stuff now that's been in the trailers is kind of gone, except for, of course, that flashback scene with the Jedi, which I cannot wait for. But I mean, I feel like there's so much that we don't know, and I love it. And that is one of my like big criticisms with trailers and stuff nowadays. It's like, I feel like a lot of times they just give away the whole movie. I feel like, a big example of that recently was Ant-Man Quantumania. I feel like there's been other movies that have done this too, and it's just like, I'd rather a trailer not give away so much, because I want to, I don't want to know too much going into the series. I just need enough for you to get me hyped. Mando spent a good portion of this episode sounding like Darth Vader with all that heavy breathing, because he was using like a filter or something, right? Because he wasn't sure if the atmosphere was breathable. Mando gets attacked by, I believe they're called Alamites. I think that's what Bo Katan referred to them as later on. But we get to see Din use the Darksaber, which was awesome, because it's been a bit since we've seen him use it. Obviously, he still is kind of struggling to use it, right? Like, it's very heavy to him, and he hasn't forged that connection with it yet. And it's great because Jon Favreau, I remember listening to like a media thing that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni were doing like before the Mando was released. And Jon was talking about how like one of the big things that he got inspiration from with the whole thing with Din struggling to use the saber was Sabine in Star Wars Rebels, which I'm sure Dave probably sat Jon down and showed him that and be like, hey, so maybe this is something we should do with Din. And I love it because like it just goes to show you that like the people that are working on this project care about Star Wars and care about going back and watching through the lore, right? Like, because I mean, how many times, and listen, I'm not going to sit here and criticize every single thing about all these other shows that I don't like. But as a prime example, whenever people were talking about Kenobi, like especially the Inquisitors from the Kenobi series that were also in Star Wars Rebels, and everyone, like every time that they would ever get interviewed, someone in the media would ask, so have you watched Star Wars Rebels? Like, have you watched Star Wars Rebels to get informed on all the stuff? And every time it's like people would say no. And it's just kind of funny, right? Because it's like the people that are asking these questions, right? It's like the people want to know, like the diehard Star Wars fans want to know if you are keeping up with the lore and understanding, like, and taking it seriously. But then it's like these people are like, oh, we haven't watched Rebels. Like, oh yeah, we didn't have to watch that or anything like that. And it's just like, well, like, what? And then it's kind of becomes clear too, because I'll see the characters do certain things in the show, right? And it's like, well, they wouldn't have made that mistake in Rebels, or they wouldn't have done this, or they wouldn't have done that. But, you know, again, it's different creators, it's different people with different takes on Star Wars. It just happened to be people and takes that I just don't necessarily agree with. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are like my only hope for Star Wars right now, you guys. Like, no one's doing it like these guys in Lucasfilm right now. Nobody is doing storytelling on the level that these guys are doing it. I mean, I've been hearing stuff, right? Like, I know Marvel's going to be cutting back on shows and whatnot for Disney Plus. I don't know if Star Wars is going to do the same thing, but if they are, I would scrap every single project that doesn't involve Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, or if you're not going to scrap it, have them run it. And just have, honestly, it's like I've been saying before, you guys, and I've said it in other videos, that just like, I want Jon and Dave to be the head of the ship at this point. I want them in control of everything and them working on every single piece of Star Wars content. Because, like I said, in my opinion, no one's doing it like these guys. Mando ends up getting captured, and Grogu then has to go to Bo Katan for help. So then Bo Katan and Grogu go back to the planet, and they kind of go through like the same process that Din went through, right? Like they went through the same pathway and everything, but this time obviously with Bo Katan. And then eventually we get to see Bo Katan use the Darksaber because she sees it laying on the ground and she's like, oh, I'm gonna pick this up and use it. And she was a freaking master at it. The saber didn't look like it was heavy to her. It looked like she knew exactly what it was she was doing with it. And Bo ends up saving Mando. And Bo saves Mando multiple times throughout this episode. She rescues him after he was captured. She rescues him at the very end of the episode when she's pulling him out of the water and then the episode ends. And I'm like, no, don't end there. There were a lot of surprise attacks in this episode too. Like there's all just these calm moments, you know, something's going fine and blah, it shows up on screen, whatever it is that's attacking. I mean, there were good like 2 or 3 times in this episode where I was like, oh geez, whoa. What is Bo Katan up to? What game is she playing? Because obviously she's trying to keep Din alive, right? But also at the start of the episode, she's like, all right, let's end him once and for all. So, I don't know, like, eventually does she plan on challenging Din? Is that why she needs him alive? Because then that way, like, she'll have, like, a claim to the Darksaber then if she beats him? Because remember, last time she had the Darksaber, it was just given to her. And then she was so adamant this time that, like, I need to bring Moff Gideon in. I needs to defeat him. But now that Din's here, right, maybe she's like, all right, Din Djarin is mine. I'm gonna wait. I'm just gonna pick my spot. And then once I get that moment, I'm gonna challenge him and take that saber back. I love the line that Bo says to Grogu. I know it was in the trailer, but I really love it, where she says, did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian? And speaking of Grogu, the way that he took off, like in his chair, like when Din tells him, go get Bo Katan, and then like he hops in his chair and just flies off, like, I don't know, there was just something very comedic to me about that moment. And yeah, like I did wonder by the end of this episode, are we going to get to the waters, or is that something that's going to happen next episode? And no, sure enough, we got to the waters of Mandalore, right? Like he was going to bathe in them, and then the giant creature attacks, and then Bo has to rescue him, get him out of the water. And that's where the episode ends. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, you guys. I'm very curious. But I mean, a trend that I've noticed when it comes to Mando, and I remember this being a thing in the past too. I think I've brought this up in previous seasons, and if not, then I bring it up now. But every time they do a, you know, last time on Mandalorian, and they'll show scenes, like specific scenes that are going to potentially foreshadow who or what is going to be in this episode, right? Like they talk about Bo Katan in the previously thing, and it's like, all right, so we know Bo Katan's going to be in this episode. Last week, it was IG-11, right? Like the flashbacks with IG-11. So it's like, okay, why they bring random that they choose to bring up IG-11 of all things right now? But no, it's because IG-11 plays a factor in this episode. So usually whenever like you spot out certain characters and stuff, it kind of foreshadows like what's going to happen in this episode, which I do find very cool. What else do I want to talk about in this episode? We get to see a gauntlet fighter again, which is pretty cool. We get to see Bo Katan chatting with Din about her past, right, as a child, and then talking about her father and how her father, you know, sacrificed himself for Mandalore, and, you know, Din just having that pause and being like, this is the way. Once I find a clip of that, that's going to be my new outro for Mando episodes. Okay, so predictions for next episode. I think that Din Djarin is gonna, you know, obviously have to either defeat this creature or tame it. and he's gonna end up bathing in the waters of the Mandalore, right? And then he'll have to go back to his people, be like, hey, I did this. Now, whether or not they accept him is a whole nother thing, right? What if Bo Katan went with him, though? Like, that would be the other curious thing. Maybe that, oh, you know what? Maybe that's what she wants. Maybe at this point, she's like, all right, I'm gonna go back with Din. I'm gonna go back to, like, the peoples and everything. And then she's gonna challenge, like, Din will become a Mandalorian again. Bo will then challenge Din for the saber in front of all of his people. And then maybe, like, the condition is, or something like that. I don't know if they necessarily, Din's people believe in the Darksaber stuff, but maybe the condition is like, okay, if I win, you all have to follow me now. And that's how Bo gets her power back and gets her peoples back. Ooh, the other big thing that I forgot to talk about in this episode, you guys. So Din Djarin was talking about his past too, and he mentioned how he grew up on Concordia, which is one of Mandalore's moons. It's the place where Death Watch resigned in the Clone Wars, for a little while anyway. And I guess the other big thing now that I'm thinking about it as well is Grogu we get to see use his powers a little bit, right? Like he's using the Force a little bit more. He was doing that Force jump. But, you know, I think a big progression for Grogu, you guys, is like whenever he used to use the Force, right? He'd always be very sleepy. But he used the Force here and he was perfectly awake. So perhaps he is growing stronger with the Force after all. Though I do question, though, again, because without training, right? Because Grogu was trained for 2 years. But again, we don't know how long 2 years is for Grogu when it comes to training, right? Like I said last week, 2 years of training for Grogu could be like 2 weeks of source material, for all we know. But without proper training, without proper discipline, you will most likely become vulnerable to the dark side. So at what point do we start to see the dark side messing with Grogu? Do we get it this season? Do we maybe at least get some teases of it and maybe it's something we tackle in season 4? I guess whatever happens in Mando season 4, we definitely will have to wait and see how things play out, because I know that, I think what Jon was saying as well is like the season has been written to factor in events that happen in both Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew. So we'll have to see, you guys, but I think there's a lot of different directions they can go with this show, and all of them I feel like, for the most part, from what I can tell, are very exciting. Jon, Dave, keep doing the good work for the fandom, y'all. All right, you guys, that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel. Stay tuned for my thoughts on The Bad Batch, newest episode of The Bad Batch. If y'all haven't been checking that out, highly recommend that you check out The Bad Batch, you guys. Such a great show as well. And I will see you guys next time.
This is the way.